NAR settlements and the future of real estate. Hello and welcome to another episode of Carry On with Carrie Fitz. I'm Carrie Fitz, owner and broker of Carrie Fitz Real Estate in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. If you're here, welcome. I'm happy you're here. Typically, I write my podcast with a specific listener in mind. It might be for an agent, a buyer, a seller, an investor, etc. But today, because of the historic news concerning the National Association of Realtors lawsuit, I thought I'd pivot and put together an episode that discusses what's going on. Not a deep dive, but a basic look at what it all means. I'm not an expert on this topic and I'm not an attorney, but you'll get my realtor broker perspective. I'm sure most of you listening know the news I'm referring to, and I'm not going to go into all the background on this situation. But the gist of it is that there have been multiple class action lawsuits that claim the real estate industry has been anti-competitive in some of their business practices and have colluded around price fixing. That's kind of the bottom line. The largest defendant in these class action lawsuits is the National Association of Realtors, NAR, which announced their settlement in late March that essentially changed the rules on how real estate agents are compensated. The new rules around the changes are supposed to be in place around July 1st. Our local association board, the Tuscaloosa Association of Realtors, of which I'm a member, started meeting and discussing how to get in front of this, and we made our changes to our association effective January 1st. To say we received a little flack about our decision is an understatement, but generally our membership was cooperative. I believe we were the first in the Southeast to be proactive, and now the rest of the associations in the U.S., for the most part, are having to play catch up. The NAR settlement requires NAR to pay a settlement of $418 million over the next 4 years. Also in that lawsuit were Keller Williams, Remax, I think maybe Berkshire Hathaway. But what does all this mean? What's going to happen? How does this impact agents, the consumers, and what's going to change? The first thing we know with certainty is that no one really knows anything about what all this means yet. Anyone who says anything concrete this early in the game is purely speculating, and there are plenty of them out there. My guess is that there are more lawsuits on the horizon. The second is that agents aren't going anywhere. You're likely to hear a lot of noise that will try to make you believe otherwise, but there is still a need for realtors. The third thing I know for sure is that if you want to come out of these changes on the other side with a healthy business, you're going to have to adapt. The agents that do will thrive, the ones that don't will dive. The last thing most people expect will happen is that these changes will lead to an exodus of agents that leave the industry because in the short term at least, it'll be harder to make a living. But that's not a bad thing. This industry needs to be weeded. As I mentioned earlier, we made these changes in January locally as an association, and the sky hasn't fallen yet. We're all okay here in Tuscaloosa, and you will be too. So let's go back a little bit and dive a little deeper into our 4 takeaways, because no one really knows how all of this is going to shake out. The one thing I think everyone can count on is that there's going to be a lot of misinformation and confusion before all of this gets figured out. The moral of the story is to stay calm and carry on. Don't jump to conclusions, don't panic, and don't blow this out of proportion. No chicken littles, please. We're going to be okay. On the flip side, don't put up your head in the sand and ignore it. Stay informed. Change is coming, and that's a fact. What's most important is that you stay informed and educated about this because it will be a topic of conversation with people everywhere you go, and you need to be able to discuss it confidently and with authority. Now, having authority doesn't mean pretending you have all the answers. It simply means that you can talk about it. So stay educated. Be transparent and unbiased in your opinions, and be prepared to answer questions, but never in a defensive or dismissive way. Right now, there is a boatload of speculation about what all this means, and there's a ton of misinformation out there, which is going to lead to a lot of confusion in the industry and among the the consumers. I've seen headlines that are sensational and deceiving. One headline recently that I read was 6% of real estate commissions are dead, is a perfect example of some misinformation. A consumer could interpret that headline in a lot of different ways. It implies that real estate commissions were fixed before, and they're not, and now they're not. In my experience, it's just not true. So to recap, even though the situation is as clear as mud right now, there are a few things to do. Number one, don't panic. Don't jump to conclusions. Let things unfold a bit and understand there's going to be uncertainty in the short term. Keep yourself informed and educated. Number two, you're going to have to adapt. Change is inevitable in your life. Some people hate change. I love it. It shakes things up and makes things more interesting. It re-energizes me as it presents a new challenge. Don't worry, you've got this. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Carry On with Carrie Fitz. Until next time.